Javon the creative, bad boy with a syllabus. Teaches truth with the camera, not cloud of gimmicks. It's just cause you can post it, don't mean you should. Ethics in the frame, like, let's be understood. Media literacy, hoodie with the sleeves push. Breaking down consent while the algorithm looks shook. He'll roast a bad take, then explain it real calm. Like intent matters, fam, context is the bomb. Teaches kids how to shoot, adults how to pause. Who's telling the story and who benefits, dog? He don't chase viral, he builds a spine. Cause clicks fade fast, but integrity's timeless. Got students trying to flex, B-roll of pain. He like, why you filming? Who wins from this frame? Camera ain't neutral, it carries your weight. Every angle of choice, every cut of debate. Funny with it, but serious in tone. Knows power lives in what you leave alone. Creative bad boy, not messy allowed. Just teaching folks how to be human and proud. So if Javon talk media, you better lean in. He'll give you the tools and the mirror within. That's the real flex, that's the dangerous joy. Javon the creative, ethical bad boy. Javon the creative, bad boy with a syllabus. Teaches truth with the camera, not cloud of gimmicks. It's just cause you can post it, don't mean you should. Ethics in the frame, like, let's be understood. Media literacy, hoodie with the sleeves push. Breaking down consent while the algorithm looks shook. He'll roast a bad take, then explain it real calm. Like intent matters, fam, context is the bomb. Teaches kids how to shoot, adults how to pause. Who's telling the story and who benefits, dog? He don't chase viral, he builds a spine. Cause clicks fade fast, but
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another class here at DCM. I'm Javon, digital bad boy, and today we're going to talk about some DaVinci Resolve stuff. So typically, we know I'm an Adobe Premiere kind of guy, but I know some people out there use DaVinci Resolve, and they're probably wondering, Javon, why? Why do you never talk about DaVinci Resolve? Do you hate it? And I really want to be like, nah, I don't hate it. I actually use DaVinci Resolve for a lot of different things, and I find it more useful in certain situations than others because it's just there's things that it does much better than Adobe, and there's some tools that are just a little bit more intuitive, or a little more, I would say, deeper. They have like a deeper use than some in Adobe. But we're going to talk about some DaVinci Resolve stuff. And it's going to be AI assisted color grading and sound mixing. So there's really three tools that I really like in DaVinci, but specifically we're going to be talking about DaVinci Resolve's neural engine. And I want you to keep that in mind because when I say neural engine, it's heavy. Essentially, it means heavy on your computer. So keep that in mind as we go through here. But we're going to talk about what the engine does well, where it breaks, and how to fold it into a workflow that you already trust. We already know, we all have a workflow on how we edit. We all have a workflow on how we do different things. And for that, it's kind of like we just have to come on in. We got a guest with us in person. But I'm sorry, I lost my track. But we already have our workflows. We already have how we typically do things, and we already have how we normally work on things. So this isn't to tell you to change your workflow. This is something that you already do, just in a little bit of a different software. So let's jump into it. So we got a roadmap. Where are we going to go? We got 5 places. We're going to start at step 1 and go all the way to step 5. So step 1, we're going to do the setup and the ground rules. We got to figure out where we're going So we make sure we got how we get there. But we're going to talk about what studio versus the free version is. We're going to talk about GPUs, your project settings, and how the tools actually think and work inside of your computer and why. And then step 2, we're going to talk about the magic mask for subject isolation or secondary grades and the edges where it actually falls apart. We want to know how things fall apart along with how they work well with us. And if we know how they fall apart, we know how to make them work well. Good theology of thinking. And number 3 is voice isolation. So pulling usable dialogue out of a bad room without making it sound like it's processed. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We're going to figure out how we make audio sound good without having to make it sound crazy in the whole process. And then number 4 is going to be speed warp, frame generation for slow motion, and the shutter decision that makes it work. All 3 of those tools I just mentioned, we're going to talk about how we make those work along with how they fall apart and when to use it. And the last thing is we're going to put it all together. We're going to talk about our Premiere equivalents. We're going to be shooting for the tools, and we're going to be talking about a repeatable order of operations to make sure that those things work. All right, everybody ready? Let's move forward. Okay, so what has actually changed? Before, a solo editor was pretty much like you were cooked. Like everything had to be shot exactly how it needed to be shot. Everything had to be put together exactly the way it needed to be put together because one, things were extremely expensive, tools were extremely expensive, and really resources were limited. Back in the day, editors, DPs, directors of photography, everybody on set was limited by the technology of their time. Today, we're not limited by the technology of our time. We actually are even more empowered by the technology, but it doesn't mean that we can just do whatever we want and however we want to do things. There's still a pathway of how things work. It's just kind of those pathways are a little bit wider. Think of it as like before we used to have dirt roads, now we have streets. That doesn't mean that you can just drive any way you want on the street. It's just now it's a smoother ride to get to where your destination is. Okay, so yeah, so a solo editor used to hit a wall in 3 specific places: isolating a subject without rotoscoping, and we'll talk a little bit about rotoscoping. Saving audio that was recorded in a bad room. We've talked about that before. And getting smooth slow motion out of footage that was never shot for it. This is something that's pretty new, but one of the tools I was mentioning that I actually really like DaVinci for because Adobe doesn't have a good equivalent to it. So, yeah. Now, Resolve's neural engine does not remove the walls, like I was mentioning before. It just moves them further back. The skill now is knowing which side of the wall you're standing on. So think about what I mentioned with the streets. It's like, we'll say we were in a car because you don't want to be standing on the street. But let's say you're driving in a car on the street. Do you want to be on the street where everybody's going the same way as you, or do you want to be going on the opposite side where everybody's coming towards you? You probably want to be on that side because you probably want to be on the correct side because now you're in danger. So, yeah. But, okay, so rotoscoping. Rotoscoping before used to literally be hours of keyframing. A editor would have to go through each singular frame of a shot and actually map out the keyframes to make a mask to follow the subject so they could color grade with it, so they can make any changes to what they needed to change, the background, the subject, an object, whatever it may be. They used to have to do that manually. But now we can do that in minutes with a swipe of our mouse right across the subject we want to select. Number 2 is noisy dialogue. This used to be footage that was trash. It's like if the dialogue sucked, if it wasn't recorded well, that you had an HVAC running in the background or you had, a fan running in the background, it was like, yep, you got to throw the whole shot out. But now this is footage that you can actually deliver depending on how bad it really is. And then slow motion. This one is a big one because I still see it on Instagram to these days, and it makes that I know we've all seen the edits on Instagram or TikTok or different social media platforms where so you see that the footage is visibly slowed down, but it looks like a choppy mess. That's choppy frame blending. The frames are not blended well because there's not enough frames there. But now we have tools that can generate frames in between those frames so we still get that smooth, buttery look for slow motion. Now, before we touch anything, we got to know exactly how these tools can work because I don't want you to go open up DaVinci Resolve today with the free version and be like, Javon told me about all these tools, I can't use any of them. Yes, it's true because the studio version is not free. So all these features that I'm talking about, they're not in the free version. The free version shows them so you can find out where they are, but it does not run them. So you have to, and there's no workaround. So you actually have to purchase DaVinci Resolve Studio. The great thing about that is DaVinci Resolve Studio, this is another reason I like it a little bit more than Adobe sometimes. You buy it once and it's free. The updates are free. Everything is like, once you buy it, you own it, that's it. You're good. And a good hack, when you do buy it, you get one of these, but a good hack is you can purchase a Blackmagic or a Blackmagic product like a camera, and it comes with it. So they already have a really good ecosystem for their Blackmagic stuff. So I would recommend if you don't want to just buy the software, I would say get a Blackmagic product that works well for you and get it brand new, and it comes with DaVinci Studio with it. Because yeah, Blackmagic is DaVinci Resolve, so why not have a camera that works extremely well with the editing software? It makes the most sense. The second thing is your GPU is the bottleneck. So the neural engine runs on your graphics card, so an older graphics card doesn't change the result, but it does change how long you wait. And I will say that as an editor, your render time is very important. So we'll talk about it in a little bit more in depth as we get into the class, but the better your GPU is, the better your computer runs, the higher level your computer runs, it's always going to result in better wait times. It's not going to change the results, so like if you do things well, it's going to work. And there's workarounds for it if your GPU is not that great, because mine was not that great for a while. I had to build up to get a GPU that actually ran pretty fast and did things well. But to understand why it is the bottleneck, it's because you're asking your computer to generate things that weren't there, create things that didn't exist, and do things that it needs to imagine. And that requires a lot of energy, a lot of compute power. And it's an AI software, it's a neural engine, it's a thinking engine, and this engine has to think very hard in order to make those things happen. So sometimes it's a little difficult for the computer, so your GPU is very important to this thing. Now, something a lot of people skip that I'm still surprised that a lot of people skip, check the project settings. Your timeline resolution, your frame rate, they affect how masks track, they affect how frames get generated. They really need to match your project to your footage before you build anything, because if those don't match and things look crazy, no matter what you do, it's just going to look crazier. So the sooner we fix that, the better. Always check the project settings. I believe you're prompted in DaVinci to make sure that your footage matches the timeline settings. It's kind of like how Adobe does it. But yeah, just make sure that those things match so you're not frustrating yourself and you don't know what to do. Okay, and work on a duplicate timeline. This is an underrated thing. I don't know why not too many people do it. Very underrated skill, very underrated workflow. Work on a duplicated timeline. So once you get your picture locked and your edit done, duplicate your timeline to do those more brave edits. So if you're like, yeah, I do want to try speed warp on this, or I do want to try to edit this and use voice isolation, or I do want to try to use magic mask right here to kind of fix this background. Like, you can do all that and still have an original project that really doesn't change. So if everything broke on this one, you have a good starting point to go right back to. And if you're working on a timeline that, hey, I need to get this in next week. I don't have a week or so to really get this done. Now you have, like I can deliver. You have a deliverable thing that you were then able to try other things on without having to go back to that. And you never know. It's just a good practice in general, because there's been some times that I am so glad that I duplicated the timeline, because I've done revisions for someone and they say, oh, well, we actually like the old version. And there's been times I didn't do that, and I'm like, now I gotta watch the old version and try to recreate that. So good practice to try to duplicate your timeline every time. I won't even say try it. Duplicate your timeline every time. Now, we talked a lot about the neural engine. What is it? How does it work? What are the tools inside of it? All three of the tools we talked about that we're going to talk about they run in the same basic loop, and understanding it tells you pretty much why they fail and when they fail. So, step 1, this footage analyzes. And then 2, it predicts what's going to happen. And then 3, it generates. And then 4, it gives it back to you. It's the same way. Pretty easy to understand, pretty straightforward on how it's going to work. But it's going to analyze, then it predicts, then it generates, and then it gives it back. It does this several times, which is why it's such a big bottleneck on your computer, and it needs a lot of compute power, because it's doing this tens of thousands of times at one time. And if you ever look at how many frames are inside of one clip, it's doing that for each single frame. So that's why it's such a big, important. But a good rule of thumb is to understand that this tool is extremely confident. But just because it's extremely confident does not mean that it's accurate. So in Resolve, it's not going to tell you like, oh yeah, it's confident and it's accurate. It's not going to tell you the difference. So you want to make sure that you have the final say. You want to make sure that you're confident in how it looks, because it's just going to give you the result. It's not going to tell you, oh, this is accurate and this is great. No. So, yeah. Now, tool number 1 is going to be the magic mask. This is where you isolate a person, a face, or an object across a shot by drawing a single rotoscope shape. So that may be just a swipe down across things. And I do have a little screenshot to show. Let me pull that up first. It might be a little bit blurry, but we'll see. So, I'm gonna exit my little thing real quick. Hey. Oh, maybe it won't let me. So, yeah, it's fine. It won't let me. So, I'll show it a little later. We can go back to full screen. Boom. Okay. Well, I'll show the tools at the end of the class so people can actually see. But after I close the presentation. Okay. So magic mask. What is it? You're isolating a person, an object, or a face. Pretty straightforward. So how do you isolate a subject without rotoscoping? It's pretty straightforward. You draw a stroke across the subject, across the object on one frame, and Resolve is going to identify that subject, and it tracks it forward through the entire shot. And it's going to generate what's called a matte at every frame. And a matte is essentially, it's a cover. So think of it as like, now that I've drawn, if I'm going to magic mask myself in a shot, right? I draw a stroke over myself, and it creates a red circle around me. Not a red circle, but like I will appear red, and then we move forward with as that shot progresses, it's going to create one of those for each part of the frame to show that, okay, this subject has now been masked, or like a vase is in a shot. That subject has been now been masked. And the matte is going to feed a node like any other qualifier, which means that everything you already know about the secondary grading, it still applies. And the mask is just a new part. So think of it as the mask works the same way any color grade is going to work. It's just now that's another piece of the color grade. So whatever you do to layer under, that's not going to happen to the top one, but now you can apply those effects to that mask. So it's not going to change. It basically keeps everything the same for you, so you're not changing anything except what you want to change. So you're drawing the mask to be like, you know, Javon is a little dark in this shot, and I want to make him lighter, but I don't want the background to be any lighter. And you notice with most color grading software, you're going to, with most color grades, it's like you're going to change everything in the shot. But with a mask, you change whatever you masked over it. You're only changing what you selected. So it's very handy in that sense. And then when are you going to reach for it? Exactly what I just mentioned earlier. So you use it when you're trying to warm skin tones without warming the whole frame. So let's say like you shoot something and somebody looks a little blue and you want to kind of pull that color up back into their skin. You mask them so that they then become a little warmer when you turn up the color temperature rather than everything gets warmer. Because like maybe you want the shot in the background to be a little more blue, but you want that person to pop out more as a warm figure. That's kind of the whole thought process around that. And then pulling a subject forward from a flat or a busy background. Sometimes your background, you'll notice, is just there's too much going on in the back and it's hard to actually focus on the subject. So you mask either the background or the subject. You'll mask the background to, let's say, blur it or darken it or add some different color behind it to kind of separate it. Or you mask the subject and brighten them up, and now your eyes naturally go to that subject. It just depends on what it is you're trying to do. Number 3 is darkening or replacing a background behind an interview subject. Kind of what I mentioned earlier. Like, hey, this background is pretty bright. So even this one behind me is like, sometimes it will look pretty bright depending on how you lit it. And, you know, you can't really change the lighting now that it's shot. So you're like, okay, well, Javon looks perfect in the shot, but the background is still a little too bright. So I want to darken that out and even that out so it looks a little bit better. You mask the background, you brighten it, or you darken it, or you replace it. Because sometimes you're like, hey, we shot with a green screen, and I want to put Javon in Aruba, so he's teaching us from the islands. That sounds cool to me. I would love to just actually teach from the islands. You never know, but that's just me. And then the next one is fixing one person's exposure in a 2-shot. This is something I've experienced a lot, and this is actually why I started using masks. Because, like, let's say you're in the middle of a podcast, and one person isn't lit as well as the other person, and they're a little bit darker, or or they have different skin colors or skin tones. So what lighting looks like for one person does not look the same as the other. And it's like, well, you can't really fix that with the lights, but you know in post that is something you can fix. So that's kind of when you would reach for that too. And then this one's a little confusing, and it's going to sound confusing when I say it, but any secondary HSL qualifier cannot clearly isolate. I know that sounds a little crazy, but it's really just means that anything. So an HSL qualifier is like, think of it as a graph that has all the colors in a specific area. So it'll be like saturation, shadows, and something else. I forget what the other one is, but you control the colors that are in those spaces. And sometimes when you're controlling those, you're changing other things that you don't want to change. So you use a mask to change those only specifically for what you masked. So, yeah. That one's a little more advanced. You probably won't use that as much. I don't even use that as much, and I edit every day. But yeah, a good note though is the mask. It's not the grade. It's just permission to grade one part of the frame. So if you don't really take anything away from that, just take that away. It's like the mask. You use a mask when you're trying to control one part of your shot, not the whole shot. I was gonna say you lost me. Okay, magic mask. How we like the working order. How do we work through it? Well, there is 5 steps. The first step is to grade the base first. Like you still always want to do the base work first. You want to get like the primary corrections. You want things to look kind of in order, look somewhat orderly before you start doing other stuff because it's just going to make it crazy. And a mask actually tracks better on a clean and correctly exposed image. So you want to get that image as close to correctly exposed before you start trying to change, the little things. Before you start trying to go in detail, you want everything to look somewhat orderly beforehand. The second is you add a layer or a parallel node. So DaVinci is a little different when it comes to color grading because they use nodes instead of layers, which is kind of weird. And I'm gonna actually try to bring it up, see if it lets me drag it up there. Doesn't want to let me drag it, so I'll walk through this a little bit at the end because yeah, my computer doesn't want to let me drag it, and that's okay. Yeah, so they use nodes, so you want to use like a parallel. You want to use a parallel node rather than um, just doing one thing. Like you want to have more than one node because a magic mask lives in its own window. It lives in its own node. So in that node tree, you decide where that mask would fit best, and that's just going to be the most helpful thing because then you're not changing everything. You can kind of adjust it around to see where it's going to work the best. Number 3 is you want to choose a person, a face, or a feature. And a feature really just means an object, but a person, it means masks the whole body. A face targets the facial features and the face itself, and then a feature, the feature mode handles actual objects. You want to pick the narrowest one that works. So sometimes that will be a whole person. Sometimes you want to just do things with a face, and sometimes you want to just do things with objects. Picking the narrowest one is going to be the most helpful, but try and see what works, what doesn't, and work from there. Number 4, you stroke and track. One confident stroke across the subject, and then track outward. If you want, when you watch the mat, you want to watch the mat, not the picture. So don't watch the entire picture. Watch what you selected to see how it runs while it runs, and then go from there. Because then you'll see, okay, it didn't catch this, it didn't catch that, blah blah, and so on. And then you would refine the mat. So you want to blur. This is where the blur, the in and out ratios, and the matte finesse come in hand. So a slightly soft edge reads more than a natural and perfect hard one. So if you see that a mask is like, the edges are a little blurred around, if you selected me, the edges are a little blurred around, that is actually totally fine. You don't want that line to be perfectly right down my shoulder. You want it to be a little bit out because then it gives that nice little finesse in between. I like to call it finesse. I don't know what the actual term is, but yeah, I like to call it finesse. And yeah, you want it to be a little bit soft so you can it gives you that space between because it's not, then it won't look so processed when you give the final thing, when you give the final delivery. And a good note is track in both directions from your cleanest frame, not from frame 1. So you don't start from, the very start of the clip. You want to start from where you have the cleanest shot in the clip and go from there. Not You don't want to be like, oh, well, the clip started at 0 seconds, so I'm going to start the mat at 0 seconds. It's like, no, if your shot doesn't look good until you get to 2 seconds, use it from 2 seconds forward, not right from the start. Because then it's going to be looking crazy. You'll be like, why does it look crazy? It's like, well, start from the cleanest and cut that piece off because that's where it's going to look the cleanest. And okay, so where does this work and where does it actually break? So Magic Mask holds up when there's clear separation between the subject and background. I mean, that's pretty obvious. It's like if it's shot well, it's gonna work well. So if the footage already looks good and you want to try to make it look even better, then this is the time. That's where you use it. And steady and slow camera movement. So you want to make sure that the camera was held steady. It's not shaky. It's not looking crazy. And um, full or mostly full body is in frame. So it doesn't mean like you have to see me head to toe. It just means like whatever, if you're doing a medium shot, every part of me that should be in that shot is there. It's like if it's how I'm framed up now, then that is like what is best. You don't want to just do my head. You want to have my whole body in it, not just my face. But if it's just my head should be in the shot, not my shoulders, knees, and toes. Um, and then even and consistent lighting across the shot. This sometimes you're gonna notice you'll be shooting outside or in an office, and a cloud goes over a window, and now the whole room lighting changes. This is why you want to be shooting with lighting, regardless of where you're at, because clouds do that, and we can't stop them from doing that. We'd have to get rid of the clouds. We love our clouds, so we're not going to do that, especially how hot it's been. Yeah, so you want to just make sure you have even and consistent lighting. And if someone's asking you, like, hey, can you think you can fix this? Like, no, the lighting's not consistent, so I'm not even going to try to waste my time and the energy on my GPU to do that. And of course, this last one's kind of straightforward, but your subject stays in frame the whole time. I mean, you don't want them to walk out of the camera. It's like that defeats the whole purpose of the mask. So yeah, when does it fall apart though? Heavy motion blur on arms or hands. So that just means like motion blur just means like you're moving your hands a bunch, and they're talking like this. They're doing all this stuff. A mask isn't gonna work there because there's too much for it to try to track. It's like realistically, it's like, can you watch somebody talk like this the whole time and not feel like, all right, buddy, slow down, like calm down. Like if they're moving a little bit like in good motion, then yeah, maybe that works. But it's like if I'm just like this the whole time, it's like, no, it's a wrap. It's not gonna work. But the subject leaving and re-entering the frame, like if you're running off the camera, if they're leaving, it's like it's not gonna work. Don't even try it. It's not gonna work. Some people are gonna try it, but it's not gonna work. Don't be surprised. And then two people, this one is actually kind of like a good rule of thumb for when you're shooting. If two people are crossing or overlapping each other, a mask isn't gonna work. So these are areas where you want to make sure when you're shooting things, you want to, if people are going to be walking across each other, that lighting and those shots have to be like on it. They have to look good. You have to be okay with those because a mask tracking them is going to lose track. Or you're going to have to go back to the old days and get very manual with it and do it individually. So that's on you on what you decide to do. And then fine detail and edges. So these are like loose hairs. These are glasses frames and like really sheer fabrics. So like really shiny and particly fabrics. It won't work as well. It falls apart in that. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it doesn't, but don't depend on it if you see that, because then, it could potentially fail. And then backgrounds that match the subject in color or value. So like if I'm wearing a black shirt and I have a black background and you try to mask my whole body, it's gonna look crazy. It's not gonna work. So make sure you tell your interview subjects, if you're gonna be in a black room, don't wear black. Or if you're gonna be in a green screen, don't wear green. All those different things. And then last thing is fast whips and pans. It's like you don't want somebody whipping and panning the camera extremely fast, because it's like, well, if something is flying, like if something's flying by your face, can you even look at it to follow it? Probably not. If you can, you might be Superman. I don't know, but yeah. So you want to give the computer at least something that it can work with. But a good note is when a track breaks, don't start over. Split the clip, split the clip, and track each section from its own clean frame. So if you notice things are breaking, that doesn't mean like, oh, completely give up. It's just kind of like, this just means that you got to slow down and cut from each frame. Now, number 2 is voice isolation. You're going to find this on the Fairlight page. Why DaVinci Resolve calls anything in voice and audio Fairlight, I don't know. I still don't understand it to this day. It's up to the editing gods. I'll leave it there. But what does it do? It strips room tone, it takes out HVAC hum, and it removes background noise out of the dialogue that you would otherwise have to throw away. Yeah, so you pull usable dialogue out of a bad room. We've talked about what a bad room is before, and if you were in my previous classes, a bad room is those rooms that echo, they have an HVAC hum, they have, a fan running in the background, you got a fountain running in the background. It's like, when you walk in a room and you hear a bunch of sounds going on, then yeah, you hear a bunch of background noise, people are playing music festivals. Those are horrible rooms. Like, you don't want to be in somewhere that you don't want to be recording audio in rooms that the sound already sucks. But yeah, voice isolation separates the human voice from everything else in the recording, and then it lets you dial how much of everything else that is going to stay. It lives in the clip inspector on the Fairlight page as a single amount slider. Okay, that simplicity though is pretty deceptive, because the slider is not its quality control, it is just a trade-off control. So more isolation means more artifacting in the voice itself. When you hear artifacting, just think that the voice is going to sound significantly more robotic. So when do we reach for this? Interviews in rooms with HVAC or a fridge hum, easy. Event run and gun audio with crowd noise. On-camera mic footage where no lav was rolling. Always have a lav. Always have a lav and an on-camera mic, because it's gonna save you more times than it won't. Good rule of thumb there. And then archive or client supplied audio you cannot reshoot. Sometimes people are gonna give you footage that's like, what were you doing? So just we have tools. We have tools now. And then rescuing one unusable answer in otherwise good interview. This has happened to me. Somebody's given me like a really good answer, and they were wearing a bell on their neck. And I was like, I didn't notice that they had the bell on because it didn't ding the whole time they were talking, but they got so excited about this answer. They leaned forward, and I just hear a loud ding right as they gave the answer. And I was like, oh my God, bro, you got to take that off. Yeah. And they didn't want to take it off, so we had to put a little bit of gaff tape in there so it stopped dinging against the metal. So, okay. Yeah. But we want to think of this tool as a rescue tool, not a substitute for good recording. You want to record things correctly still, but think of this as like, oh, this didn't work out as great as I thought. You have a tool to help. It's a rescue tool, not a substitute tool. Now, the working order for voice isolation, you want to listen on real speakers. Laptop speakers they hide the frequencies that actually we're trying to cut out here. So that your laptop isn't going to hear it, your phone isn't going to hear it. I always recommend editing with headphones or with studio monitors. Studio monitors, not everybody has those, but headphones, everybody has access to headphones. Doesn't matter. They don't have to be, the world's best headphones that have ever been created, but just a pair of headphones because you're gonna hear those frequencies, and yeah, it's gonna help you. And second, you want to set your levels before you do all this process. So you want to normalize and gain stage, meaning you just want to get the audio to sound clear. Like you want to get the audio loud enough to sound like you can hear it properly before you start doing stuff to it. Because when you start changing things, it's going to it's not going to work that well. And voice isolation actually works better on a healthy source rather than a quiet source. So you don't want to start from a quiet spot. You want to start from a spot that's like sounds healthy. And number three, you want to start low and creep up. I think this is always a good rule of thumb for anything you're doing, but voice isolation especially. And this is actually they recommend 20 or 30% starting there, and like begin around 20 or 30%. I'd like to say 10 to 15. It's like if it's not helping around there, then you probably want to go up to 20 and 30. But I say 10 to 15 because like you never know. But and just raise it until the distraction is gone, not until the noise is gone. We're not trying to get rid of the entire noise. We're just trying to get the audio to sound really clear. And number four, you want A and B constantly. So you want to toggle the effect on and off because your ears, they adjust. So once you start doing things, your ears are going to start hearing things properly, especially because you're focused on it as an editor. So you want to go back to the old version, then go back to the new version, back to the old version, back to the new version, and keep doing that over and over because you train your ear to not adjust as fast. And it's going to adjust as fast, especially if you just keep listening to it in that format. And then number five, prepare the room after. So a good rule of thumb, when you're recording, get 30 seconds to a minute of room tone of whatever room you're recording in, and keep that track. Nobody talking, just what the room sounds like, because no room is ever silent. We don't record in a vacuum. We don't live in a vacuum. Even when things are silent around us, we hear the sound of silence. So you want to record that and then have that in the background. But you want to add that little room tone back into the edit after you do all this stuff, and then tighten that up a little bit and that's what's going to make it sound very amazing, because then you have what the room actually sounds like and the voice on top of it, not both together. They're both separate tracks. And you really don't want people to notice audio. Nobody notices good audio, but they definitely notice very processed audio. It's like if it sounds robotic, people notice that. But if it sounds good, everybody's just like, well, that's how things normally sound. So you don't want people to notice. If people don't notice your audio, that means you did good. It means you done good. So we'll go through this part kind of quickly because it's kind of similar to Magic Mask, where things hold up and fall apart. It holds up when there's steady and continuous noise, like HVAC, a hum, a road, cars driving by, air handlers, but it falls apart when music is playing under the dialogue. So like if I'm playing a full song while Dom is talking, answering a question in the interview, it's like, bro, give it up, wrap it up. It's not gonna work. It's gonna make the audio sound even worse. And it holds up when one clear speaker is well above the noise floor. Think of noise floor as like the bare bottom of a track that it's silent to super loud, and you don't want it to be near the silent part because it just can't do anything. But if a speaker is well above that, like right in the middle or even closer to the higher end, now we can work with it because it's either too loud or it's just kind of it's either like too loud or it's it's right there in the middle and it just needs a little boost. Yeah, but other people talking clearly in the background. So again, if two people are talking and you hear 18 other people's full conversations, wrap it up. It's not gonna work. And also doesn't work with like wind buffeting. Actually, that was a word I learned this week, is buffeting. That sound of like wind going across a mic, that's called wind buffeting. And then mic handling noise, like if somebody's like adjusting their mic or they dropped it, wrap it up. It's not gonna work. And then two, heavy clipping or distortion is already baked in. So like If someone was already too loud when you recorded it, it's not going to work. But it does work when you have a moderate noise that you just want reduced rather than erased. So like if it's noise that's like, yeah, I hear that hum in the background or I hear people talking, I just want that lower and voice higher, it's going to work. And it also works when you're content where intelligibility matters more than warmth, meaning like if someone is talking about something, like let's say we're on Bloomberg and they're telling us about the stock market. I don't care if whoever's talking sounds super sweet when they talk. I'm like, tell me about the stock market. What is going on? What's happening? I need to hear that. That kind of thing. So, yeah. A good note, perfectly dead dialogue sounds fake next to untreated clips, and it sounds fake in general. You're going to repair the room, but don't delete the room. Last piece is the speed warp. This one is my favorite one because, like, I didn't know it existed until I would say probably a couple months ago. But I didn't know it existed until it saved my life actually. So I shot something at 24 frames per second that I thought I was shooting at 60, and I needed to slow footage down, and I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But its speed warp does retime and scaling, so it generates frames that were never shot. So footage recorded at a normal speed can actually slow down really cleanly. So footage shot at 24 frames per second actually don't look crazy when you slow it down. So it does slow motion that you did not shoot. A standard slow motion either holds frames, which stutters, or it blends them, which causes it to smear. So if you shoot something at 24 frames, then and you slow it down, it's going to look stuttery or choppy, or it might even look smeared. It's going to look crazy. That's what we know. But speed warp uses this thing called optical flow, driven by the neural engine to invent new intermediate frames based on how pixels are already moving. So essentially, if I'm walking straight or I'm running straight, it's going to predict that, oh, well, he's going to continue running straight. So we can just add frames of him running straight into the frame. And done well, a 24 frames per second can actually hold a 40 or 50% speed and still look like it was actually shot at 60 frames per second. And push farther, and you're going to start seeing the tool looking crazy. Now, when do you use this? Is a moment that you need it slowed down at a normal frame rate, kind of like the one I explained. Softening a cut point or extending a beat by a few frames. I think most editors have been in that space where it's like, if I had 2 more seconds on this shot, it'd be so great. You can do that now. And then B-roll that needs to breathe under a voiceover. This is another thing I've experienced. It's just like, man, I need just like this B-roll to be a little bit longer, and I didn't shoot this shot long enough, and it's at 24 frames a second. So I need it just to be a little longer so it can match this, and then voila. And then matching a slow shot to a high frame rate footage around it. So like if you're matching one that shot at a slower frame rate, and you shot everything else at 60, and you want this one shot, you really like it, and it works well, you want it to match, that's when you use it. And then salvaging a one take moment, you can't reshoot. That one's kind of straightforward. So the working order, you want to set a retime process on the clip. So make sure everybody has this slideshow so you can actually have these working orders and you can see them for yourself. But you want to set retime process on the clip. You right click retime process, optical flow, and then set the motion estimation to speed warp. And then voila. People skip that. I don't know why, but you want to set motion estimation to speed warp because then it will start building those frames. Key point. Number 2, choose your speed honestly. 50% is safe. 25% you're wilding. It sounds ambitious, but you're wilding if you think that 24 frames can be slowed down to 25% of its speed. that is wild. It's doing too much. But 50%, you can do that. You can do that. It's very possible. And below 25%, I hope that shot is the best shot ever shot because it has to be forgiving because it might look even crazier than before. Number 3 is watch the edges. Oop. Did I go up or did I go down? Yeah. Okay, yeah. So number 3 is you want to watch the edges and not the center. Artifacts show up where objects overlap. Like where objects overlap and limbs cross the body, you want to kind of be very aware of those areas and scrub those areas as well as you can because sometimes discrepancies show up there. So just kind of pay attention to those things. And then number 4, trim before you commit. This is a very key thing that goes along with your GPU. Only apply speed warp to the portion that actually needs to be slowed. So that means like if a clip is sitting on top of another clip and you need it to be 2 or 3 seconds longer, cut the end of that clip and then do your speed warp. You don't have to apply from the start of that clip all the way to the end of it. Just cut the clip and then use it from there. And then review at full resolution. The playback is not going to tell you the whole undivided truth. You got to play it back, and that sometimes means you have to export it, watch it, and then go from there. So, yeah. And another good note is budget the render time into your schedule and not the last hour before you have to deliver because it's going to be late. It's going to be late if you expect that because sometimes you never know. Like it might take a little longer. Your computer might die, and then you got to start over and things like that. So where does it hold up and where does it fail? You want to have clean, predictable motion in one direction, good separation between the subject and the background, well-lit footage with a fast shutter or minimal blur. I mean, like all these are, we know this. You want the footage to be shot as best it can be shot. So these tools help, not rescue you, because they're not. These tools are not substitutes. They're tools to help fix the small discrepancies, so you don't have to go back and reshoot things. But it also falls apart with objects crossing in front of each other because it can't build frame. It just can't build frames of what it looks like for people to cross each other because computers are not humans. They don't understand how we move across each other. Yes. And then one important thing is too is like water, smoke, fire, hair, anything with particles, because they're so particly and they're natural. Computers also don't understand those things that well, so trying to have it generate those things is not going to be the ideal situation. So keep that in mind. And this one, I don't think I've ever met somebody who has a rolling shutter skew, like already in the source. But it basically means that like your shutter is changing from shot to shot and shot to shot. So it's like, well, your shutter speed should be locked anyways when you're shooting video. So like you shouldn't have that problem. But yeah, like if you notice the shutter speed is changing, it's not gonna work well. And then another thing is extreme speed changes. So warping starts to show as like people melting. So you don't want like very extreme, like you don't want someone running a 4.4 past you at top speed and then go right into somebody that's walking because it's gonna look crazy, or vice versa. It's gonna look crazy. And then anything with hard cuts or flash frames that are already inside the clip. So like let's say somebody's a photographer and they're using a flash. So if you see a flash in there, it's not gonna work that well because all that information in that frame is gone, and you're asking the computer to be like, yeah, take all this information that was gone, create an entirely new shot, and then continue what you were already doing. It's like, no. It's like asking somebody, that's like asking you to, sign a paper after somebody just threw a flashbang in your eyes. It's like, well, you can't even see right now, so yeah. But the footage, another note is the footage everyone most wants to slow down is exactly what the tool handles the worst. So that's like the water, that's like shots with smoke in it with the fog machine and different things like that. Like this tool doesn't work well with that. It works well with like the pieces that lead up to those shots. So you want those shots to already be good because this one doesn't help well with the shots that you really, really want. At least not yet. You never know. Technology improves every day, but we never know. Now, I added these slides because I'm very much like, if you live in Premiere, you got to understand where these tools are in Premiere as well. And most people, they're not going to switch, this week. They're not going to switch today, but they may start working towards it. So, if you live in Premiere like me, here's some game for you. The first one is the Magic Mask. This is the Roto Brush in After Effects. So, what's different though is there's no round trip. The matte drops straight into a grading node, so the isolation and color, they happen in one place. So like it's a little more unforgiving. Like it's not just one thing. The mask isn't its own thing. It's the color and the mask by itself. It's all one thing together. Voice isolation, enhanced speech in Premiere, comparable results. Yeah, like I use it a lot. Resolves is more aggressive though at the top range, so the overshoot risk is a little higher for Resolve, but enhanced speech and voice isolation, they're kind of the same thing. It's just whichever one you prefer more. I prefer enhanced speech, but voice isolation also, I use it for certain things too. And then speed warp is optical flow in Premiere. Speed warp is better than optical flow by far because it's the same idea with a stronger engine, because speed warp actually holds together at speeds where optical flow starts smearing, and it's just a much better, like, speed warp is just a stronger tool. So think of it as like a screwdriver and a drill. It's like, well, if I need a drill, like it's gonna do better than a screwdriver. Like if I need to drill a screw through a wall, yes, I could do it with a screwdriver. It's gonna take longer. It's gonna take a lot more effort versus I could just use a drill right through. I had a little note for y'all at the bottom. The judgment is identical across all of them, so just learn where the tools break, and once it transfers to then it transfers to whatever you edit in. So if you learn how these tools work best, what they work best in, then it doesn't really matter what software you use. But if you ask me, DaVinci makes some better tools than Adobe in some areas. Now, you want to shoot so these tools can actually help you. For Magic Mask, for voice isolation, for speed warp, all of this information is here, but realistically, you want to make sure that the footage is recorded well, you want to make sure it's shot well, and you want to make sure that it's shot at a specific frame rate that you need. But think of these tools as tools that can help you, not have to go reshoot, not something that you can just overlook what you should already be doing at a shoot on a regular basis, if that makes sense. Now, when should you still do things by hand? This is really 4 pieces that I'm kind of like, you kind of just got to do this by hand. And a hero shot. So if it's on screen for like 8 seconds and it's a money moment, and it's an important shot, you know what I'm saying? You probably want to rotoscope it, and you want to do AI. You want to use AI for volume, not for like a shot that the whole piece rests on. Like you want to use these tools to help you in the other areas and for the volume, but the shots that are really, really, really important, you want those shot well from the beginning. And then the client will pixel peep. So this is like for broadcast, for different agencies or larger like movies and different places like that. Like they get scrutiny that social media cuts don't. So just know who you're delivering these projects to, because some of these tools you can't really use. Like Netflix isn't going to accept it. Sometimes you just got to be okay with that shot being 24 frames and call it a day. But so just know who you're delivering to, because sometimes you might have to. And this one, I run into this a lot with newer people, but the fix takes 2 minutes. Like if you did it, you have 2 minutes to do that. You just being lazy. So yeah, and you can't explain what it did. If you don't know what the tool did, you don't know what it worked on, then then you probably don't want to use it in that space. Speed is the only advantage until it costs you a revision round. So, good rule of thumb. The last thing before we get out of here is a repeatable order of operations. So first thing I want you to do, lock your picture. Figure it like lock your picture, no grading, no audio work, just the edit looks good. And then start doing stuff to it. Do the audio pass first because you want things to sound great before you move forward. Um, yeah, like you want audio in your picture to look approachable before you start doing any other work. And then after that, you want to do retime and speed work. Um, Speed changes, they happen before the grading, so the grade sits on the final frames, not just like not generated ones. You want to make sure like all the speed stuff is happening before you change any colors or do any grades to it, because then it won't look like you're not doing extra work on top of it. And then after that is your primary grade. That's where you balance and you match every shot before your secondary stuff. Even you might not even need a secondary, but then you balance and do all those different things. And Magic Mask tracks better on the corrected image. So even in general, it's like it'll be more helpful if it's like those things are done first. And then secondaries and Magic Mask. Now you can isolate and refine those things that really just they're bothering you as an editor and you want to make them look better. This is the last creative pass before you send it out. And then lastly, you send it out. You render, review, and deliver. So you render it, watch it, get in the habit of watching your stuff, and then go from there. See what you like, what you don't like. Yeah, fresh eyes capture every artifact. So try to give yourself time to actually watch it through and get those things done. But yeah, I want you to try this on your own stuff. Do your pass one with your audio and run voice isolation or Premiere's equivalents, and then pass two, do your motion stuff, and then pass three, do your color stuff, and then share with me, share with DCM, see what breaks, what works, what doesn't, and see it for yourself. But these tools, last thing too, these tools don't make the decisions, you do. All these tools are great, they work well, they do things, and my information is on here, but I want you to understand that these tools don't they're not the ones that make the decisions, you do. So at the end of the day, it is on you to make sure that you're putting out the very best product that you can put out. So my information is right there. Send me an email, share with me the stuff that you guys are working on. Any questions you have, feel free to reach out to me. And these slides are yours. I'll make sure I send them to DCM so you have them, so you always know how to operate with them. But you also have my email, so if I didn't get them to DCM, there you go. Feel free to reach out, and yeah, that's the end of the class.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We didn't have any questions? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I know it sounds like you've done a series of these. Can I get like, if you've done it, like a beginning, DaVinci Resolve, PowerPoint?
Yeah, so I can share pretty much all the slideshows I have, but also all these videos. So these are all recorded too. So all these are on Denver Community Media's YouTube page too. So you can walk through them, and they'll be on there. I did all the walkthroughs too.
I'm a paper person. I like to read and take notes.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I'll make sure that I get kind of all my slideshows that are relevant to that to
Okay.
DCM, and then you also have my email, so feel free to just send me an email and
I
I can send you all those slideshows too.
Okay, thank you.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for coming.
Oh, no problem. I said out. When you gonna do your next one?
Yeah, I do them the third Friday of every month.
Okay.
So
Alright.
next month on the third Friday. I'm not sure exactly what day that is, but I'll
I'm
be there.
going to make sure I hit you up.
Alrighty.
I appreciate it. I have the free version of Studio right now. So I know a lot of these things I won't be able to do yet. But two is good. But I look forward to getting buying it.
Okay.
Maybe with a camera. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, have a good day.
You as well.
All right.
All right, Drew, we out of here.
B-roll of pain. He like, why you filming? Who wins from this frame? Camera ain't neutral, it carries your weight. Every angle of choice, every cut of debate. Funny with it, but serious in tone. Knows power lives in what you leave alone. Creative bad boy, not messy allowed. Just teaching folks how to be human and proud. So if Javon talk media, you better lean in. He'll give you the tools in the mirror within. That's the real flex, that's the dangerous joy. Javon the creative, ethical bad boy. Javon the creative, bad boy with a syllabus. Teaches truth with the camera, not cloud of gimmicks. It's just cause you can post it, don't mean you should. Ethics in the frame, like, let's be understood. Media literacy, hoodie with the sleeves pushed. Breaking down consent while the algorithm looks shook. He'll roast a bad take, then explain it real calm. Like intent matters, fam context is the bomb. Teaches kids how to shoot, adults how to pause. Who's telling the story and who benefits, dog? He don't chase viral, he builds a spine. Cause clicks fade fast, but integrity's timeless. Got students trying to flex, B-roll of pain. He like, why you filming? Who wins from this frame? Camera ain't neutral, it carries your weight. Every angle of choice, every cut of debate. Funny with it, but serious in tone. Knows power lives in what you leave alone. Creative bad boy, not messy allowed. Just teaching folks how to be human and proud. So if Javon talk media, you better lean in. He'll give you the tools in the mirror within. That's the real flex, that's the dangerous joy. Javon the creative, ethical bad boy.